So we're back today talking with Robbie Holz from Holz Wellness Center. Is that how I say it? Holz Wellness Center. Yeah.
So I do have a question, though. I
Okay.
have a question. I want to go back to the Hep C thing. So because I was just thinking about this. What do the Aborigines, what was their perspective on you getting exposed to Hep C in the first place? Because that really, while I can see what you're saying is that like it served a purpose for you to get to where you are now. I mean, that could have developed in many different ways, cancer, whatever. But Hep C was like an outside, it came from the outside. It was introduced to you, in a hospital, right? Does that make sense, my question?
Right. So it's kind of like, what was the emotional core involved in that? Is that what you're kind of asking? The emotional root?
I think for me, I think that I can understand like the whole idea of like, if you're stressed out, your body will shut, your emotions will get stuck, and then you develop cancer. I can grab that concept.
Right.
What I have a difficult time with is Hep C. It was an outside virus that was introduced to you
Right.
in an operating room in a hospital.
Right.
And so my question, can you address that? I mean,
Sure.
what's their perspective on that?
Yeah. Well, and I didn't talk specifically to the Aborigines about that, but let's see if I'm answering the question that you're asking here. You have to remember that my belief is that we're souls currently in a physical body, having a physical experience on this beautiful planet, and that we're here to grow and evolve and that's why we love this planet, because we grow so fast because we have emotions and a body, and it's a free will planet. And so it was necessary for my evolution on my soul's path to go through that experience and have the hepatitis and to almost die again from the treatment, because it really woke me up. I was not paying attention to my body. I was not honoring or loving or respecting it. And my emotions I was ignoring. And there was really a big spiritual void. And so sometimes these things come into our life, whether it's a car accident or it's cancer or you lose your job or something, as a way to shake us up and really kind of put us back on the path about, why are you here? What are you doing? And when you're focusing, you need to shift your focus. So sometimes it comes down to, how bad does it have to get before you're paying attention?
Well, you had many signs that something was up.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you knew you were burning this candle at both ends, and that all wasn't perfect in this world.
Yeah, and ignoring it. And I was one of those people that's like, let's see how many, remember do you remember when we used to be entertained by people throwing plates up in the air and spinning them on a stick? Remember those old days? I used to be one of those people. No.
Roger.
Roger's too young for that. Well, it was high entertainment, Roger, let me tell you that. So it was kind of like, how many plates can I spin? That was my thing, is I thrived on how many phone calls can I have on hold at the same time? How many balls can I keep going? So even though my body was giving me all the signs that it's exhausted, and honestly, I was taking care of everybody but myself. I had that Catholic guilt playing in the background, not even aware that it was my default mode, that you don't have time to take care of yourself. I know you're tired, but it's more important that you bake these goods for the soccer team. It was just, so I really needed to be shaken up. And that's really what the hepatitis C did. It woke me up.
It's like women guilt as well. I mean, you have your Catholic guilt, but then, I think as women, when we're raising kids and working a job, that, then we force ourselves into a superwoman mode.
Yeah.
So, and I really think that that's often behind breast cancer and things like that, because we're not nurturing ourselves. We're too busy nurturing everybody but us.
And you know what it comes down to? That's very well put, Janet. It always comes down to, what would love do?
Yeah. Good question.
Because love would not push you beyond what your body wants. That's not a loving thing to do to your body. And sometimes you have to set up those boundaries out of love for yourself. So it really is, we go back to that simplicity again, it really is that simple. What would love do? Love would feed my body organic food, fresh, get meditation, get exercise, all those things. And that, Roger, is how I healed that body, is loving it and providing. Now every day I meditate, I have movement and exercise, I eat fresh organic food. It's loving myself back to health and paying attention to what kind of thoughts are running in the background. Are they life affirming and love based, or are they fear based?
When you were talking about that, I went and got my Louise Hay Heal Your Body book.
Yes.
And I just thought, I've never looked up hepatitis, and what it says is resistance to change, fear, anger, hatred. Liver is the seat of anger and rage. And I think
you were quite angry.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be all of those. It can be some or all of them. But
exactly.
I know that I was under a tremendous amount of fear because I had closed down my business, expecting to get a job at the courthouse, and it didn't. Every month it wasn't okayed. It wasn't rubber stamped by the council. And in the meantime, we're building this 4,000 square foot home and throwing money at it like crazy. And I was just starting to panic. We're running out of money. How am I going to pull this off? And so I was in a lot of fear for a long time.
Yeah, an extended amount of time on top of stressing yourself out with all the everyday duties of raising a child and holding a household together, or building a household, such as the case may be.
No limits, no boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. So now your healing progress, to me, I look at you right now, I would never know that you'd had Hep C.
No, I'm told. I mean, my friends say I'm like a chipmunk on crack. I have a lot of energy. It's just I do not like coffee or any kind of pop, and I think it's deliberate that I don't do caffeine because I think everybody would be so annoyed if I was more energized.
Or you'd fall asleep. It would have the opposite effect on you.
There's that too. Yeah.
Yeah. But your healing process didn't happen overnight. I mean, you had to go. I think, now, if I'm mistaken, correct me, but your whole healing process began before Gary actually entered into your life.
Yes,
so,
yes. I was in much better shape by the time I met him. But I realized, though, that what I was using to heal were the same principles that the Aborigines are teaching.
Exactly. Now, how did you come to that on your own?
Oh, and I also think it was part of my soul's journey that I was supposed to heal. And I was so tenacious about finding answers because I had this little boy that was too young to remember me. And as a parent, you can understand that. I just knew he won't have any memories. If I pass, he's just too little.
He was like 4 or 5 at the time,
right? Right. So I was really determined to find answers. And I went down every route and discovered that there's all kinds of answers out there just because Western medicine didn't have anything at that time. And so I just kept following these little breadcrumbs that led me to the next person, until I finally, kept finding natural herbs. I remember drinking kombucha mushroom tea, making that in the kitchen, doing milk thistle to help the liver, and also going to somebody who was a naturopathic physician, but I didn't know she was doing more than just prescribing these natural remedies. She was moving energy and removing blockage, which is what Gary was ultimately doing as well with his patients that came to see him. He said it would take more time to actually remove all the stuff blocking than it actually was to restore it. Kind of the cleanup. When you go to paint something, it takes more time to get ready than it does to actually paint it. It's kind of
exactly. Sure. Yeah, who likes painting? So you go through this journey, and and Roger, are we ready for a break, or are we okay on time?
No, we're good for now.
Okay, because one thing that I realized through both of the books is that this is really a love story. It's a love story in that Gary is learning to love and accept himself in a different way. You are also going on that journey, and then the two of you meet. And can you share with us how you two came to meet and what happens from there? Sure.
Well, we met at a 4th of July party, and it was one of those, and this may sound bizarre to some of our, the audience, but when the first time he met me, he was introduced to me at this 4th of July party. Apparently all the past lives flashed across my face. And it freaked him out. He had never had anything like that happen before. And it also alerted him to the fact that we had had a history and he needed to know more about me. Now, I didn't have any of that. I mean, I'm just totally naive to everything that was going on. So he kept pursuing me. And at this point, I was passionate about, I had healed myself, and I was passionate about healing animals because I love animals. And I thought, well, if I healed myself, then I can teach how to heal animals. So he found the one way to pull me in, and he wanted me to start working with him, working at his clinic. And he said, well, I will teach you how to heal animals. And so I'm like, I'm on board. And so I'll come. I'll quit my job working with a vet, and I'll come work for you. But what really sort of sealed the deal was I come from a big family, and one of my sisters back in the Midwest was going blind from uveitis. It's a very rare disease, so there's no treatment because there's no money in research or treatment. So she had lost all her vision in one eye and had a little bit of peripheral vision in her left eye. And there was nothing Western medicine could do for her. And Gary said, send her out. I think I can help her. And on the fourth day, she regained her vision. And I realized that he had done that for me because and so it was like somebody flipped a switch. I just immediately fell in love with the man and knew that we would be together forever. And on all levels, we still are, quite honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, your story reminds me, we interviewed one time Dr. Jamie Turndorf. She wrote the book, Love Never Dies.
Yes.
And have you read that book?
No, but I know exactly, I've heard of it, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
It is a fascinating journey that she takes us through, and I see it mirrored in your story with Gary, and that, even though death to us seems so final, that there's still this relationship that can happen across the veil, if you will.
Yes.
And you guys also share that same kind of connection. Now, do you still work together?
We do. We do. I mean, he's not in the bedroom anymore. That's for sure. I mean, I had to, it's been 8 years since he passed. And it took a while. I wasn't getting involved in any romantic relationships. And then I finally got rid of the bedspread that we had lived with. And it was interesting how within a week, somebody new showed up in my life. But what I didn't expect to happen was that he would show up every morning after he passed. He had very distinctive energy. It was like the shape of an eye. And my sister sees the same thing. Mm-hmm. If I closed my eyes, I could see that. And I could see that when he was still alive. If he was working on me, I could tell he was working on me because I'd see that shape if I closed my eyes. So he was always very punctual, and he continued to be on the other side as well. And so he would show up every morning at 8:00, not 8:01 and not 7:59. It was always, except one spring a couple years ago when he was an hour off, when we changed our clocks, But other than that,
he wasn't off. We blew it.
That's right. That's right. But so he would show up, and like today, I was meeting a longtime friend of his that we've been wanting to meet. We've never met, and we were having lunch together. And just as I'm getting ready to go meet this man, on Pandora, the song from Gary's funeral played, which is his way of saying, hi, I'm here with you. And I thought, well, of course, here I am. But he's part of I have this beautiful healing team from the other side of the veil that assists me. And he's part of the team. So he's been delegated to the office. And he always has
the back office.
Back office. Yeah. Yeah, so he always has fresh flowers, by his picture, and I'm very well aware that he's with me, and that he helps. But it's more of a working relationship because I needed to shift that romantic part. It was necessary, After about 5 years, I really felt okay. I need to move on from that romantic relationship and be open to others. So Gary, the pictures of you all over my bedroom are going to have to be moved into the office. So
nice.
Yeah.
I bet that was hard though.
It was hard, but it was also, the signs were there that he wanted me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, this whole experience, these books, everything about your experience has been so magical. And there's such a mystical quality about it, yet it's grounded in this everyday life that you lead.
Yeah.
Of this healing and being healed. And there were some other examples, I think, in your book that you used where people you weren't given permission to heal these people.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about that for a minute? When does that happen? And what do you do with that? And let's take a break real quickly and come back and talk about that.
Okay.
Good one, Roger.
Thanks.
That chat box is very good.
All of it, yeah.
Hello, everybody. We're back with Robbie Holz. And just before we took a break, I'd asked her the question about what happens when some people, which had happened a couple of different times in the book, and I'm sure it's happened many other times, where it was a no, that you couldn't help these people, or that the healing couldn't take place. Tell us a little bit about that.
We weren't allowed to intervene. The very first question we asked was, are we supposed to help them?
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, we got a yes, but sometimes we got a no, and that was usually around children and babies. And I mean, that Aboriginal Secrets of Awakening has just some beautiful stories of when we got to and when we didn't. And it was really heart-wrenching for the ones that we weren't able to assist. But because they come in deliberately that way. They come in to experience blindness because it's part of their soul's growth and journey. They need that for what they're going to evolve through. Everything is very deliberately designed to assist you in your growth. And so, souls deliberately choose to have Down syndrome because of the experience, and everyone that surrounds that is very deliberately also agreeing to that as well. So it's and I did think it was interesting how autistic people would come to us through their parents or whatever, and sometimes we were allowed to help autistic people, and you never knew to what level. You never knew, are we simply planting seeds? We may not even see what this is going to what's going to happen with this. But I thought it was always interesting that the autistic patients could always clearly hear Gary when he was communicating to them subconsciously, because Gary was always talking to people on a subconscious level, always asking permission first. Can I talk to you that way? And the only ones that ever really knew he was doing that, other than like the Aborigines, he was communicating telepathically to them back in the outback. But the autistic patients were well aware that Gary was talking to them.
I think that's fascinating because we talked a little bit behind the scenes before the show started about the fact I do human design astrology.
Yes.
And the person that brought that into existence had told his first group of people he was teaching this to that one of the signs that we would see in this world that things were changing is when we saw a spike in autism or autistic children being born. And he saw that as a shift in humanity. As anybody who plays on the internet, things are so fast anymore. You can talk to anybody around the world at any moment, but that there's this thought that it's a prelude to us using telepathy. That communication, in getting involved in that nonverbal communication, and we are all capable of doing it.
Yes. And the human design thing is amazing. Someone did that for me in New York a couple months ago, and it was like, I cannot believe how dead on that human design thing is. So we're doing that. But the Aborigines, the remote outback, they will tell you that we all were telepathic. I mean, they have still retained that. They're telepathic to the trees, to the plants, to find out what can heal what, to the water. And a lot of these indigenous cultures are like that. But when we started speaking out loud, that's when we started losing our telepathic abilities. And they will tell you that speaking out loud is really primitive and very chaotic. So
it is.
It is. And
the Tower of Babel in the Bible, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about that, but I think that that's true. I mean, how many times when you talk to somebody, are you not being heard, or they misunderstand what you're saying, or you misunderstand what they're saying? Mm-hmm. And if you could just communicate telepathically, it would be like this clear message, and then you'd be done.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is that when we started speaking out loud and lost that connection through that telepathic ability, we also lost our connection to the earth. Mm-hmm. And to nature. And that's how we kind of drifted so far away, is we could no longer hear the trees singing to us. We couldn't hear the mountains talking to each other. We really lost our connection. And so that was why I think the outback Aborigines have beautiful wisdom, because they've never lost that. They've always maintained that. And I think that they're incredibly awakened, incredibly enlightened, and the wisdom that they have to teach us is just this is where we need to go. I just attended a conference in Canada about people who are passionately working on creating a positive environment and changes in the world. And I realize that what they're talking about, what we need to do, is what the Aborigines are doing. And they've got that from these indigenous cultures. How do they live together in harmony? Mm-hmm. The Outback Aborigines, they don't even have a possessive word. They don't have a word for my. They don't think like that. It's a community. They're all together supporting each other. There's no judgment. There's no comparisons, no criticism. That's a fear-based mind thing versus a more love-based living. And that's the difference.
And it's I think the beauty that comes through the stories that you tell is how simple they are, mm-hmm. and how full and rich their lives really are.
Yeah. Yes. Despite
not having telephones or, computers and iPhones and iPads and all of that, they live a completely rich life.
It's true. And I have found that as I continue to embrace more of what they've been teaching me and get my life as simplistic as I can, it's keeping it as simple as I can, life gets better. Mm-hmm. It just getting rid of possessions, not needing them. You just feel so much freer. It just feels better. So I'm really being more conscious about simplifying my life everywhere I can, including ingredients and cooking and eating, just keeping it simple. Yeah. I mean, even buying toothpaste the choices are ridiculous. Yeah. And making,
go ahead. Finish your.
Well, and at this conference that I just attended a couple days ago, the thing that I really walked away with, and this is what the Aborigines are teaching us, is if you can make your choices with life-affirming and compassion, making it everything you do is this life-affirming and compassionate, so that when you buy that toilet paper in the grocery store, is it life-affirming and compassionate? Because there's a difference between what company's selling what and what you eat and where you spend your dollar. And if people start making their choices from more life-affirming, compassionate stance, that will change the world one by one by one. It will make a huge difference.
Yeah, we don't have to make Monsanto the enemy or have a war with Monsanto. We just take our dollars and spend it somewhere else.
Exactly.
Makes sense to me.
It's that simple. It's that simple. Yes.
Yeah. It's simple, but it is also, there's an elegance to it. But I think in our wanting to be gratified that we create wars because in some way we think it has more impact. But the simplicity of this other way of being is so much more peaceful.
And I think what it comes down to is also, it always comes down to consciousness. Mm-hmm. Rather than just being on autopilot with our minds having their way with us. And they show that you tend to have 5 negative thoughts for 1 positive thought. So that's kind of the way we're wired. You start being more conscious and you start making those choices, because we're all faced with many, many choices throughout the day. And you start asking that question, is that life affirming and compassionate? Even beating yourself up with regret. Well, is that life affirming and compassionate? No. Well, then make another choice.
Yeah. Choose once more.
Yes.
I want to turn now. Roger, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask her? Did you get to say what you wanted to say?
Yes, I do. No, I didn't. Actually, what I wanted to ask you is what do you do? You've gathered all this information, this knowledge, this wisdom. So what are you doing with it now?
Well, it's interesting how the 2 books are really doing well. They've gone out around the world, and the first one is in at least 35 countries. It's doing fabulous. And I just got the second one out, Aboriginals of Awakening, and now I've discovered that there's a 3rd book that people want, so I've started writing a 3rd book, and that is how to access this tremendous help from the other side of the veil. It's available for everybody, and it is a huge game changer. It makes life so much easier to access this higher consciousness. It's very simple, but because it's a free will planet, they will not just barge in. And so it's about how to access that. So I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of private consultations, 1 hour. I swear just 1 hour, that's all I need to make a difference, to help you see things what your emotional root is, or maybe things from a soul's perspective, why this is in your life, or how to help you move through something that you've been holding on to emotionally. So I'm a busy gal, but I'm not building houses.
Awesome.
Very good. And this is really work that's from the heart as well. I mean, you can tell that, there's a difference there. Are you teaching other people how to do this as well?
Well, I think that's the intention of the books, is to get this information and make it available to everybody. That was the intention with the Secrets of Aboriginal Healing. People were contacting me, how do I get a hold of this tribe in Australia? And it's like, you don't need to go to the Outback. It's the information is there. And the thing about, people were asking, well, how did you get to this place of being in this awakened state and being at peace with the way things are? And so that's why I wrote the second book, was to help people understand how I got to that point of healing myself in body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
And now when I just came back from New York, and there was a very strong demand of, we want a book on how to access this. They were calling it their advisory committee. Their support staff. Yes. And so this was new, but I'm finding that as people become aware that there's tremendous help on the other side of the veil, especially wanting to help now more than ever on this planet, as we're in these auspicious times, and it's easily accessible. So a lot of that information is up on my website in the blog section. I try to put as much information up as I can to help people. There's a whole section on how to access help from the other side of the veil, how they communicate to you, and how you may be missing the signs. So Holz Wellness, HOLZ, wellness.com. Again, the blog. We keep trying to put up more and more information. I think in the next week we're putting up a free report on 3 keys to unblocking, to unlocking and to creating self-healing. So just always, that's my passion now, is to help people recognize how they're powerful healers, and also how to wake up, because I reach this higher consciousness. I think that's going to be what makes the difference for saving this planet.
Absolutely. Question: does Mother Earth need our healing?
Oh my gosh, Mother Earth needs our love. Yes, yes. I think that's probably one of the biggest things the Aborigines taught me, is how Mother Earth loves us tremendously, and that's why she's put up with so much abuse, because she could shake us off like fleas if she wanted to. But when I was in the Outback doing those ceremonies with the tribe, I could feel the love for Mother Earth, and it is tremendous. And so, I was on a radio show a couple months ago, and the radio host said he has the ability to connect to trees. And he said he connected to this one tree, and he said the tree was so grateful that anybody even acknowledged it and gave it any kind of attention. So it's just becoming aware that we're all one, and that we're all connected, and to be more awake to that. And I love that these indigenous cultures, they treat the river like their brother. What a beautiful way to that's a different way of living. So there's a lot to learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to share with us your whole experience of going to the Outback, how that came about. And I know there's only certain things you can share with us about the ceremonies, but whatever you could share with us, because I know you do share it in the book too, but it sounds like you had a fascinating awakening yourself while you were there.
Before we do that, we need to take a break.
Perfect. Roger, so good of you.